Hey team, well, don't know quite how to talk about what just happened. Wasn't the favorable outcome that we all thought. And so let me just share a few thoughts that I had from the beginning of the day all the way till the end of the day. So I ended up taking the day off work, even though I was at work, because we have a really great internet connection, and basically trading all day, all right? And I went on Whale Pool and was listening to the traders talk and listening to their strategies. And I found it a useful tool in certain ways, and I also found it a non-useful tool in certain ways. Listening to the guys on Whale Pool can be relevant because you basically have a group of anywhere from 10 to 40 guys who are actively looking on the internet and sharing information with each other. So instead of one person sort of monitoring, the internet for the ETF decision, we basically had 30 or 40 guys, and they're really good about shouting out the relevant updates and posting various links throughout the day. So I mean, in that respect, I found it very useful. In other respects, I found it really terribly distracting. And that leads me to sort of like the big run-up that occurred at the very beginning of the day. So I still remember this. It was about 7:30 or 8:30 in the morning, and for absolutely no reason, there was this huge run-up in price from about the low 1200s all the way up to 1336 on Bitfinex, I think. And as I was listening on Whale Pool, you could hear the guys chanting. They had super high energy, and they were sort of shouting out their observations on what was happening to the order book and the fact that someone had come in and sold 5,000 coins and the market had just eaten it all up and continued to go higher. I mean, the energy was very strong, and I felt like there was a very strong amount of groupthink in the room. And I found myself actually changing my trading strategy and going long, almost at the peak. I think I got into at 1,300, which ended up immediately retracing against me and ended up holding sort of overpriced Bitcoins. So I just wanted to comment on that I think that on Whale Pool, it can be very useful in terms of sharing ideas and discussing things and being able to share information. But the groupthink or potential for groupthink can be very distracting. The next thing that happened throughout the day was, they started just sort of goofing off and joking around during the day, and I just wasn't in the mood, to be honest. I was there to trade, and I wanted to stay focused. And at one point, someone kept on bringing a girl on and talking to the boys, and they were laughing and joking. And I think that that's fine if it's like a social channel, but I personally wasn't there to be social. So I found it distracting and kind of annoying. So I just wanted to highlight that. So we moved on throughout the day, and the price basically came down from 1,300 down to 1,250, and sort of stayed around the 1,250 mark for the majority of the day. And I ended up, getting out of that previous position I was in at a small loss because I just wasn't sure where the market was going to go. And about 5 minutes before 4 o'clock, which everyone was predicting was going to be the release of information, you had this huge surge in buying all the way up to 1290. And it was very, very clear, right? It was very, very clear that this appeared to be like the last push of people trying to get in before the announcement was about to be made. And I think it went all the way up to 1290 at one point. It was very, very high, which was great. But I wanted to stick to my trading strategy, which was wait until after a news release. And I think this is where we come to sort of the trading problem, which was I was going to short. I was going to log on to BitMEX and use a 1 to 100 times leverage on a short side in order to protect myself from downside risk. So what that was going to be able to do was basically take one Bitcoin and short it, right, at 100x leverage, so that if the trade actually moved against me and the ETF wasn't approved, then I'd basically almost be completely protected. And as I began to make that trade, because the ETF wasn't approved, and I immediately moved to actually make that trade, basically all of the order books froze. And that includes Whale Club, BitMEX, and Bitfinex. Everyone was actually basically commenting about that in Whale Pool. It wasn't just me. So it became very clear that if you wait until the last second for these types of decisions, and there will be more of these pivotal points within Bitcoin, you probably won't be able to get into your position. So you really need to get into your positions at least a little bit before you anticipate everyone else getting in, because you just won't be able to get in. And basically, I was trading on Gemini, and I ended up basically selling out at about $1,000 a Bitcoin, and I was hoping it was going to go lower so I could rebuy at around 800, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, because overall my prediction, if the ETF wasn't approved, was that the price was going to drop down to, I don't know, as low as 600. And this is where the funny thing happened. Although I wasn't able to rebuy my Bitcoin, because it basically touched, I think, 990, and then moved back up. I'm actually sitting here in shock right now that despite basically having the worst decision, the worst decision in several years, in my opinion, in terms of news. I mean, many of us have been waiting for this ETF to be approved. It was supposed to be our holy grail in terms of capital markets and being able to open up Bitcoin to global investors. And it basically popped right back. As I'm making this video about, which is almost 2 hours now after the news release, Bitcoin's back up to 1,100, which really is absolutely astounding. An $1,100 Bitcoin price was the same price that it was 2 weeks ago, right? So basically we lost, almost 2 weeks of gains, which is absolutely nothing, in my opinion. And it only shows how resilient this trading market is becoming. That, indeed, there was many buyers sitting there on the sidelines who just wanted to get in and wanted the regulatory certainty of knowing whether or not it was approved or not. And they weren't necessarily concerned about waiting to get a $500 Bitcoin. So, I take a tremendous amount of comfort in that. And that's a really big buy signal for me in the long-term future of Bitcoin, with respect to the fact that I think that we're still going to continue to have a great 2017, because as I was talking to a lot of the guys in the whale pool, like, this actually shouldn't be happening. Like, the amount of recovery that happened so quickly, and the fact that we're basically only down like 7% for the day, given this news, shows that this thing has actually started to take off a little bit, right? We could basically almost completely make up the losses in a couple weeks potentially. I mean, nobody knows the future, but the fact that we're not at a $600 Bitcoin right now and then need 2 or 3 months to work our way back up to where we were, in my view, is astonishing. And I attribute that to 2 things. The reason why I think that it bounced back right away is that there was a wave of capital sitting at the sidelines that only wanted regulatory certainty. And they're willing to get in after the decision, because they were the type of investor that were willing to did not want to purchase Bitcoin at 1,200 and then correspondingly see it crash to 600 and have it sit there, right? So they would rather have an ETF decision, wait for certainty over price, and then get in. They actually didn't care what the price was, as long as they didn't lose 50% of the money that they put in. So, according to this theory, at least from an immediate perspective, we're basically sitting at where we started as far as I'm concerned. So that's one type of investor. They wanted regulatory certainty. They wanted to wait until after the decision came out, and now they're in. And they don't have to deal with the uncertainty of potential 50% correction. The other reason why I think that we didn't see this huge correction is the regulatory environment in China. Up until about a month ago, there was a tremendous amount of day trading happening in China, driving up volumes that wasn't even real trading volume. I think I remember looking at Bitcoin Wisdom, and on the Chinese exchanges, I mean the Chinese exchange volume was literally 95% of the global volume, and that's because they didn't have any trading fees. Therefore, people would just go and they'd be clicking on it all day, buying and selling Bitcoin to themselves. And I don't know if they made any profit or not, but there was definitely a lot of volume there without fees. Now that the Chinese government has sort of come in and implemented these regulations over their exchanges, which I won't go into because that's a whole other discussion, it's actually brought a lot of price stability. The Chinese are still free to buy and sell Bitcoin, and so they can still own it, albeit they have to keep the Bitcoin in their exchanges. But you're not seeing these massive price swings anymore, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that we have a lot less volatility, which makes us appear more investable from a corporate institutional standpoint. I mean, they want to get a lot of comfort over volatility, and they don't want to be getting into investments that fluctuate 50% a month. The second thing is these trading volumes were sort of throwing us all off, and none of us knew what to believe, and it was very, very confusing. And so now that we have this sort of certainty and we can look at the exchanges and see the approximate split between American, or should I say Western exchanges and Chinese exchanges, you can really see that the volume is sort of evenly split, and it's a lot more reasonable, and that it gives you a fairly decent idea of the split of ownership structure of Bitcoin as it relates to the community. So overall, I think we were all hoping for a much better day. I was hoping for a $2,000 Bitcoin price, and we'd be sitting here with a bottle of champagne in our hands. But unfortunately, things don't always work out this way, and that's Bitcoin, and I'm okay with that. Right? I think that I learned to be a lot more careful with my trades, and just be careful in terms of being able to place those trades at the right times, and be aware of the very strong groupthink that can happen when you're trading and you're in these sort of trading room environments. So I'm signing off. I'm gonna go grab a drink. I think I need it after today. But overall, Bitcoin's back. We're at $1,100 right now. Can't really complain. Cheers.